Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast, where we jam about money, clutter, and food, and the real stuff under this stuff. Join me, Lisa Carpenter, your resident food coach, along with my co-hosts, money coach Jen Turrell and clutter coach Lisa Sharp, as we help you release what's weighing you down and heal your relationship with food, money, and clutter from the inside out.
Welcome to today's episode of the All the Stuff podcast. My name's Lisa Carpenter. I am the resident food coach here along with my co-host Lisa Sharp, our clutter coach, and Jen Turrell, our money coach. And today I wanted to dive into the topic of moving away from pain versus moving towards pleasure. So we're kind of digging more into the mindset, the stuff underneath the stuff. So the way I describe this to my clients is the difference between using motivation versus inspiration. And our brains are hardwired to keep us free of pain. Our brains will do anything to move us away from not feeling good, even if that means putting us back in sabotaging behaviors that are actually keeping us not feeling good. So for instance, if you've been on a diet before and you've lost weight only to find that you've regained it back again, your brain decides that that was a painful emotional experience for you. So every time you try and get on the wagon, which that's a whole other topic because there's no freaking wagon. Every time you try and get back on the wagon again, you'll literally find that you start sabotaging yourself because your brain's like, no, that wasn't a good experience. I don't want to go down that path again. So I talk about it in terms of, again, motivation versus inspiration. Motivation is always using those tactics, whether it's to pay down our debt, clean out our house, lose weight. Motivation is the things that we feel like we should do. I have to do this. I have to start eating less. I have to give up my favorite foods. I have to spend hours decluttering my house. I have to learn how to do a fancy budget or spreadsheet. So motivation is all about moving away from what you don't like. I want to get away from my debt. I want to get away from this weight. Whereas inspiration is all about training your brain to do the things that are going to move you towards feeling pleasure, right? I don't need to be motivated to hug and kiss my kids in the morning. I love them. So I'm inspired to kind of, snuggle up to them. I love how eating healthy makes my body feel. I don't need motivation to make sure that I've got healthy food in the house because I'm inspired to feel amazing in my skin every day. So when we can shift how we come at the things that we want to accomplish in our lives and link them with extreme pleasure, feeling good, really tapping into those emotions that we want to experience, the journey takes on a whole different flavor, and you're much more likely to have success. But it literally means going through this process of every time your brain kind of pops up, we don't want to do this, I don't like eating healthy is boring, reminding yourself, this is how I want to feel, and eating healthy makes my body feel awesome. I have way more energy, tapping into those amazing feelings. So I would love to hear your guys' take on how you see this play out in your own kind of businesses, in your own fields, and what you use to kind of help your clients find more inspiration to take the focus off of the things that they don't like so that they can really move towards what they want to create for themselves. So who wants to go first and chime in on this interesting and super relevant topic? Lisa, you look like you're ready to go. So
I have a few things to say on this.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
Yeah, because I find that a lot of people, when they're taking care of their space, they kind of get into that martyrdom role. Like, oh, I have to take care of everybody else, and my kid never remembers to pick up their shoes, and my husband doesn't put away the dishes, and therefore he doesn't love me because he doesn't respect me. And there's like this whole backlog story that goes along with it. And so I always say to my clients, like, and then they're really frustrated, right? Understandably so, because the house is a mess. It feels like there's crap everywhere. You can't find what you need when you need it. And it doesn't look the way that you want it to look. So it's not functional, it's not beautiful, and it's annoying as hell. So I get that. That's super, super annoying. But the thing of it is when we're usually the ones that are the most affected by it, right? Our husbands, our boyfriends, our spouses, our wives, whatever, oftentimes are not the people that are like, feeling the pressure of having all of this stuff to do, or are, like visually impacted by having all of this stuff all over the house. We're the ones that are suffering. And we will often sort of, get into that mindset of, that I have to do all of the things, and therefore I'm not going to do any of the things because nobody else is helping me. So thank you. And, but we're screwing ourselves because we're the ones that it really affects. So just getting out of the mindset of like that we're punishing somebody else, because we're not. We're punishing ourselves. We're making ourselves miserable. And we're not teaching anyone other than this is the way that you should treat me, because this is the way that I react to things. So if you want you want others to treat you better, start treating yourself better. Start taking care of the things that actually matter to you. Start making your life more pleasurable. So like little tiny things can make such a huge difference. I hear this all the time. People will be like, oh, I love pencils. It's like, good, then buy some pencils that make you really, really happy. Like, oh, buying a new Chanel lipstick. I couldn't do that, but they're so beautiful. And people will go on for 5 minutes about how much they love it. It's like, go buy the freaking lipstick and quit buying the CoverGirl crap ones that you buy at Walgreens. You know what I'm saying? Like, inject your life with pleasure, like, of this world. Enjoy the hell out of it while you're here, and stop sort of, putting that off later. Oh, I'm going to buy my kid the fancy shoes, but I'm wearing the same pair of sneakers that I bought 8 years ago and that I mow the lawn in, and I'm trying to, like get my health back and start a new exercise program. I mean, like really sort of break some of this stuff down and think about like, what do you actually enjoy? And not just sort of buying things willy-nilly, not just using things willy-nilly, and actually taking care of your space. So one of the hardest things that I have ever been through in my life, there was an apartment fire that was purposely lit in the apartment below us when our kids were very little. I'm going to try not to get choked up talking about this. But one of the things that my mom, who lives in Flagstaff, Arizona, with Jen Turrell, they're all out in Arizona, all the fabulous people are in Arizona. My mom said to me, I was just devastated that someone would do this on purpose. It wasn't just like a scary thing. Somebody purposely did this. And she said, go buy the most beautiful roses that you can find. Go find the most beautiful, sumptuous flowers that you can find, and go treat yourself. And we didn't have any money. And I was like, we have this apartment fire. There are like a million different things that are going on right now. Like the last thing I want to do is to do something like this for myself. But she's like, do it. So I listened to my mom, because my mom's pretty smart. So I did it. And and this is my daughter was so little, I was still nursing her. And I put it right across the bed, or the bedroom from me. So every time I sat on the bed and I nursed my child, I looked at these beautiful flowers. That made such a deep imprint on me. I always have flowers in my house, always, 100% of the time, because that is self-care. It's not just about, spending $20 on some flowers. It's about doing something that is beautiful, that's enjoying the things of this life while we're here, and not just, buying things willy-nilly or ignoring it. Like, put pleasure in your life so that you are more apt to take care of it. The more like Lisa with meal planning, like when I'm actually preparing my food, I'm thinking like, oh, this is, I'm taking care of my future self. Like on Tuesday, when I'm tired as anything and I don't feel like cooking anything, I can grab a turkey meatball that Sunday Lisa put together and cooked for me. Yeah. It's like doing this sort of things that I would do for my kids, but doing them for myself, because it gives me a lot of pleasure and it increases my overall happiness.
I think what you said there was important too, around, who do we need to become? Who do we need to become, right? So if you're always telling yourself you hate things and you're doing them and you hate them, but you feel like you should be doing them, that's not creating who you need to become, if that makes sense to people, yeah. Right? Like so when I think about when it comes to my debt and repaying that down, because we're going to hop down to Jen Turrell, I have to really, like, if I focus on that debt and oh my God, it's going to take me so long to pay it. And if only I could spend that money on something else, if only I didn't have the debt, right? That's me focusing on exactly what I don't want and perpetuating that pain. So again, my brain's going to be like, yeah, you shouldn't pay it down. Let's go buy a pair of shoes, right? Whereas when I actually let myself sink into what is my life going to feel like when I'm debt free? What is going to be available to me? What will I be able to do? What type of freedom will that reward me with? And when I close my eyes and really picture that and sink into the emotion of it, that inspires me to want to pay down the debt. And I don't focus so much on the debt because now I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do these things, right? Because I've worked with Jen. I'm going to do these things that is going to help move me out of debt. And every day I'm getting one step closer to becoming this person who's debt free, who feels this way and is able to do these things. It's so much more expansive when we come at our stuff like that, as opposed to, always feeling crappy, because regardless of our situations with our clutter, with our money, with our food, we get to decide how we want to be with those elements of our lives. And if you're constantly focusing on what you don't like I said, you're always going to be getting in your own way. It's like banging up against the wall, trying to, escape your life, but not taking a step back and actually gaining a different perspective and saying there's a different way to come at this. What if I could come at it in a more inspired way, as opposed to constantly feeling like I have to motivate myself? So how does that relate to you, Jen?
Well, it was interesting listening to what both of you are talking about with this, because I feel like doing some of the things that move you towards pleasure and away from pain in terms of your home and your food also have really profound financial effects. So one thing that I noticed, Lisa, when I was working on my inflammation, my stomach inflammation with you, was I was eating at home more because I could have better control over what I was eating. When I eat out, I'm not a foodie in the sense that I like to prepare intricate meals. I'm not a great cook. I'm going to say that right here. But I am in terms of liking to order really fancy things. I love French food. Like, my love affair with food started as a child when I went to France with my dad and discovered flavors I didn't know existed. And so I really like to order fancy things. I like cheeses. I like sauces. I like odd kinds of meat. I like trying quail or pheasant. I like really experimenting with foods. But going out to a restaurant, especially fancy ones, you have no idea what is actually in it. And when I was trying to avoid these inflammatory things, eating at home, going out less, saved me a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Also, having my house clear. We talked in another episode about how your external space reflects your internal space. And like Lisa, when you helped me with this office and we kind of set up my organization, my calendars and my projects over here and my bookshelf back here, we actually moved the chair out for the moment because my kids love that rocking chair. It's the rocking chair that I nursed them both in, and that my mother nursed me in and my sister in. So I had it here in my little reading nook for a bit. Mm-hmm. But anyways, days when my kitchen table and kitchen counters are completely clear with cut flowers on the table, I feel so good. I mean, that costs so little money to buy some cut flowers at the grocery store. That's where I usually get them. Put them on the table and have some time with everything cleared off. That makes me feel abundant and good and pleasurable. And, I feel like there are these sets of things that I can do that don't cost much, if any, money. Another thing is when my car is full of gas.
Mm-hmm. I have that too.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's from early in life when I used to drive cross country to and from Philadelphia to go to school. And also just knowing that if I know this makes me sound slightly paranoid, but if I need to just get in my car and get away from something or someone, I can do that. I have gas in my car. There's nothing that makes me feel more in scarcity mindset than wondering if I can make it to the gas station. Yes. Am I going to run out of gas before I get there? Or like having a ream of paper, a whole ream. Like I decant it because Lisa talked to me about decanting things when I bring them home. So I unwrap it from the plastic, but I have a whole ream of paper sitting there, as well as extra printer cartridges. Because again, like, how frustrating is it when you have to sign some official documents of some kind? Yeah. And you can't print it, and they don't have the e-printing option, and you have to go to the store to buy ink just to be able to print something. So I have my own little list of things that make me feel really good about my situation that don't cost me a lot of money. Another one is like toilet paper from Sam's Club. I know that sounds crazy, but having plenty of toilet paper, having it, multiple rolls stored in our pantry that I know we are not running out of toilet paper, because especially when you have little kids, you can have a house full of people, and if there's not enough toilet paper, you feel poor. You feel poor not having enough toilet paper because you have to go out and get some and bring it into your house. So while this isn't the big overview of moving towards pleasure with your money, I like having these little things that I feel like I can do to feel really good and pleasurable right now where I am. In terms of paying off the debt, I think one of the best things you can do is save at the same time. And we've talked about this in other episodes too, Lisa, is have an account where at least a little bit of money is going every month that is you're ignoring. It's just being saved and it's there in case you need it. Ultimately, we want an emergency fund and retirement funds. But if you've been focusing everything on the debt that you created at some point that you feel guilty about, and you're not saving any money, that means every time something unexpected comes up, you're probably putting it on a credit card again, which means your debt, maybe it's going down for a bit, but it bumps back up and then bumps back up. And the goal is to not have it bumping back up. The goal is to get it down to where you're paying it off every month so that if it bumps up, you get it back down to zero. And we don't have the ongoing interest that we're paying. So I think that getting in the habit of seeing some money accumulate somewhere in some account in spite of paying off your debt, even if it's a small amount at first, is really important because it also makes you feel safe, knowing that there is some cash reserve somewhere that you can access if and when you need it, is pleasurable. There's a pleasure in knowing that. And also, watching yourself save towards specific goals like vacation. If you know that you want to take a vacation and you can anticipate how much it's going to cost, how good does it feel to pay for it before you go? Instead of knowing you're going to come back and have that vacation hangover when you see it on the credit card. I feel like the pleasure is using your money for the things that make you feel really good without the debt hangover whenever you can. I mean, we're encouraged. The problem is we're so encouraged to not pay attention to what we eat. I mean, all of the restaurants, fast food, packaged food, they do everything they can to make us eat that food without thinking about it. And credit card companies and stores that want your money. I mean, it's preying on our desire for instant gratification over true pleasure.
Yeah. Well, I know with my money, one of the things that used to stress me out is, I'd get my credit card bill, but I wouldn't actually want to take the money from my account and pay down my credit card bill, what I spent, right? Because it put me in this I won't have any money then. So when I talk about moving away from pain versus moving towards pleasure and changing how my brain kind of process that, I now get excited when my credit card bill comes and I'm like, these were my business expenses. This is the money I need to put on my credit card. I'm actually excited to pay what I spent as opposed to before, right? So that's how much I've changed my thinking. And even when you were talking about food, saying you love to go to restaurants and you love to try fancy stuff, a lot of times when people move into this place of eating healthy, they feel like I can't do that anymore. It's got to be one or the other. So working your, nutrition and your food, so you're still taking care of yourself, you're eating home more often. And when you go out to these places, there's no guilt attached to saying I get to have this fancy meal, even though I'm trying to eat healthy and I'm trying to lose weight. You get to do both. And that's what I mean around if we're focusing on, well, I've got to create this change. So that means that all of this stuff has to go, as opposed to saying, I get to create this new food plan for myself. I get to take care of myself better. And it's going to be pleasurable because I still get to have these things in here and no longer buying into the story that is going to ruin your forward progression, right? So it's really amazing how powerful we are, right? Our brain literally responds to what we tell it to do. And if you don't believe me, did anybody watch the Olympics? Because the stuff that those athletes put themselves through in training for that, you look at Usain Bolt, what does he run? My God, he runs so fast. But the hours and hours and hours and hours of training that goes into a run that's 26 seconds, 25 seconds, that's phenomenal, but you don't see how behind the scenes he really, like, he's a human being just like the rest of us. He has to do you think he bounces out of bed in the morning every single morning saying, I got to do this? But he has trained his brain to say, like, this is going to bring me pleasure. Like, doing this work is going to get me what I want. And I'm willing to show up even when it hurts to do the things to move me forward. So our brains are incredibly powerful. So you've got to watch how you're thinking, how you're feeling about stuff, and is it supporting what you really want for yourself? And that's a huge, that's when people have really big shifts in terms of achieving their goals. When they really are looking at that. I want to feel amazing. I want to feel great. I want my home to feel expansive. I want my bank account to feel abundant. And, stop shitting. Stop shitting on yourselves, people.
I misheard you for a moment there.
Same thing. But yeah, it's so important. Like a lot of us will say, I want to make X amount of dollars a month in my business, or I want to have a happy relationship, or I want to lose 3 pounds, or I want to go on vacation, or whatever it is. And we keep saying that, but our actions belie that. Because we're not conscious of our behavior. So we're sort of in this autopilot of doing the same thing that we've been doing for a long period of time, because our brain will always default back to the pattern. Yeah. But we have this beautiful thing called neuroplasticity where we can change that. But it takes a lot of effort, because you're basically getting up out of the ditch and creating a new one. So this one pattern that you've been doing is literally hardwired in your brain. You have these neural grooves where this is what you've been doing. And so, because you can't be learning new things every moment of the day, there's no way that you could be doing that. So that's why we default back to these same sort of patterns. So it does take some work. But if you sort of infuse that new habit training with some pleasure, then you're far more likely to continue doing it. You're not going to be doing it if you're, flagellating yourself the whole time. Like, I can't believe I did this. This is such a horrible thing. I can't believe I got into this situation to begin with. We're far more likely, if we're moving to actually succeed, if we're actually moving in a direction that feels good, that the journey is good. That doesn't always mean it's going to be comfortable and, rainbows and unicorns. It just means that we are devoted to whatever that end goal is. Our behaviors are matching those things. We're giving ourselves kudos and pats on the back for our successes, and we're aligning ourselves with other people that are trying to do the same thing to also reinforce that new pattern, because it's triply as hard if you're trying to move into this new way of being, if you're trying to shift the way that your brain is wired, and it takes a lot longer than we used to think. Conventional wisdom is it takes 21 days to create a new habit, and that's actually not true. I mean, we know that, at least by today's science, it'll change tomorrow. But right now we know that it takes longer than that. So all that means is that it's not impossible, but that we really need to infuse a lot of support and pleasure in our lives to get us to move in this other direction, and to just know that's normal when we slip back into the other thing, because it makes more sense. Yeah. We're forging a new path. So yeah, we're going to keep going back to that. And when we go back over here, just saying to ourselves, like, okay, this is what I did. This is a pattern, not judging it, just acknowledging it, looking at what it is. I ate the bowl of ice cream. I, bought the expensive shoes. I bought more crap than I needed to in my house, whatever the thing is. And just, try not to get also then tripped up and into the recording of, oh, screw it. Yeah. This is never going to change. It's always going to be this way. And, I think we all do that. But just sort of like bringing yourself gently back over, just like you correct a child, like, okay, let's just go back over here and try this again and do, we always have these new opportunities, and to just keep redirecting so we have that new neural pathway and this new habit and new way of being.
And the best thing about doing that is, and looking at the pleasure, is you're happier every day, which means you have a happier life. I mean, if you're focusing on pleasure, I just wanted to interject that real quick.
Well, here's the thing, our comfort zone isn't really comfortable at all. It's familiar. And if you're wanting to change how you're thinking about things, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. So if you've never given yourself pats on the back before, you've got to start being comfortable with being uncomfortable. about patting yourself on the back. Like when my clients start doing that for themselves, right? Like acknowledging themselves and, you know, having some positive affirmations and actually celebrating their successes instead of beating up on themselves all the time, it makes them feel uncomfortable. And that really is at the basis of this. When you're changing patterns, it's not going to feel good. So I always tell people, like, channel George Costanza. Do the opposite of what you've always done. Do the opposite of what you've always done. If it doesn't feel good, you're on the right path, because it means you're walking a path that you're like, where the hell am I?
Right.
This is totally new. This is not the way I've done things in the past. So I think this is probably a good place to wrap this up. Some of our episodes are longer, some of them are shorter. If you want to kind of dive more into this, you know, motivation versus inspiration and really dialing into how you want to feel, I actually have a freebie on my website that you can check out. So I will post that in the show notes below. Lisa Sharp, what do you have rocking if people are interested in connecting with you?
You can work with me online. You can work with me here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have a membership program that is a really cool platform for people to kind of come in. And this is definitely one of the topics we talk about, which is pleasure. How can you inject pleasure into the decluttering process? What does that actually mean? Because we tend to think it's like this big, hairy thing that we're trying to avoid at all costs, but actually it's really cool because you're culling out the stuff that doesn't matter to you so that you can get to the gems of the stuff that does matter to you. And that is ultimate self-care. Ultimate self-care.
Love it. And how about you, Jen?
Well, speaking of decluttering style of things, I do have a challenge that I made recently, which is it is called, what did I call it?
KonMari-ing your money.
Yeah. It's the life-changing magic of KonMari-ing your money. You can see the KonMari book right there. And I love the idea of sparking joy with your money in the same way that she focuses on sparking joy with things in your home, which is what Lisa does. So obviously I'm a big fan of decluttering, and I feel like decluttering and streamlining your finances helps you keep your home decluttered once you have it that way, because you aren't buying junk that you don't actually want. So I'd love to put a link to that challenge in the show notes.
Perfect. So we'll link everything up. Please come over to our Facebook group. Join us where we will carry on the discussion. If you love the podcast, share it with your friends. Subscribe, rate, and review, because that's how we get our message out and our work grows. So until next time, ladies, we'll see you all in the Facebook group.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.